Thoughts on the scrimmage, both special teams, and if you can't, just a general synopsis of what you saw from all three units, I guess, today.
Yeah, I mean, I thought offense and defense really got after it. I felt like on special teams, first two punts punted really well. Devin had a nice punt. I think it's about a 55-yard punt, and Gavin Rush also had, I think, a 50-yard punt. So that was good. We come back later in the scrimmage, had a block punt, which I thought was good with our punt block unit. We're kind of stressing both. So everything's a win and a loss when you're doing the teams, But I thought the guys got after it. I feel like we got some good athletic kids here that we brought in through the portal, which I think is really going to help us on all of our teams.
I know Scott struggled today, but he's been pretty solid from what we've seen, in practice. A little surprised maybe by his struggles today. Is it, getting in the stadium takes an adjustment? Just what did you see from him?
That's why you want to scrimmage, get over here and kick. And, Cam Little, when he got here his first year, the first scrimmage, which this was a little bit later because we had a little issues with weather and all that, but his first scrimmage here, I think Cam left the stadium about 36% that day. And I think Scott's probably about 48% today, but and three of those field goals are pretty long, 52, 53, and 50, I think. But he has done really well. And this week we started backing him up a little bit, because the key is you want to get him confident with those mid-range field goals, and then you want to kind of get out here and see what he can do from a distance. Blake Ford, I think, made maybe a 54-yard right there, which was good. Blake's got a really strong leg.
What have you seen from Cam Shanks just in terms of punt return game? I mean, he's brought in as a receiver, but obviously going to be, I think, a valuable part of your special teams. What has he kind of brought to that unit so far?
Yeah, I tell you, we did think he'd be a great punt returner, and he's shown us that. We really like his skills on that. He had a phenomenal year last year at UAB, but, the thing that's been surprising, he's been really good on some other units. He's done well at playing some gunner and gunner and end for us on punt. And then he's also done a nice job on kickoff. He's just a really fluid athlete in space. But, our first thing we're using for, I think, will be punt return. But he'll bring some value on some other units as well.
But Rodney and I think Cam Settles were with the first group. What have you seen? Obviously, we know Rodney was there last year, but what have you seen from Settles?
I like Settles. I'll tell you, Settles is a really good athlete. And I didn't know much about him until he got here, but he's really shined for me on teams. I think he can play a lot of our units. But he's a guy I like to get ready back there on KOR. That's why I put him with the ones today. I want to try to get him confident because he does a good job of fielding the ball, but he's also a really good athlete, got good vision with blocking. And we got some other candidates, obviously, we can put back there, but just trying to find those pieces, But I do really like Settles, not only back there, but on some other units as well.
Bale, are you looking for him to kick off again? And where's he improved as a punter?
I tell you, he's had a great spring. I mean, gosh, Tuesday, he finished the day on Tuesday. I think it was average being around 52 yards on the day. He had 5 punts that day. And Pittman called him over and said, gosh dang, man, that was awesome. I really fired Devin up. But Devin's had a great spring. Today he hit one really nice punt, and then the other punt wasn't as nice, But he's had a great spring, much better than he did a year ago. I like where he's headed. As far as kickoffs, I think right now it's probably a battle between him and Blake Ford. Blake has a really strong leg. The value Devin brings, he's also a great tackler. If y'all saw that some last year. So it's hard to take that tackler off the field, but Blake really has a strong leg. So I think it would be great if Blake could take that off of him, but I know Devin will be ready if we need him to do that.
Like every rule change the last 20 years or so has discouraged people from returning kickoffs, from moving it from the 30 to 35, no wedge blocking, and now, you can fair catch and take it at the 25. When does it make sense to return a kickoff?
I think what makes sense is if you put a guy on the goal line, or maybe a yard deep, maybe 2, but typically around the goal line, and if you can get a kid to get a feel of what 4-0 hang time is, because typically that's kind of the number. If it's more than 4-0 hang, they're going to be farther down the field. That's what we teach our guys on kickoff: be past the 30 with 4-0 hang when he feels the ball. So if you can get them to get a feel for that, then you like to fair catch it if you feel like it's over 4-0. If it's not, then you like to bring it out, And I just don't ever like for kick returners to back up to field the ball. And I thought Rodney did a really good job for us late in the year, but we just got to get him more and more comfortable with it back there. I know in the bowl game he kind of made a bad decision there, but I think he's going to be a dynamic kickoff returner.
Just have him back there counting like 1,001, 1,002.
Yeah. So what we do, we get at practice and we'll have the kickers kick off and try to get really high or jugs. And Coach Kobe Smith is working with those guys this year. And when they field it, he'll go 4-1-2, 3-8-8, and just kind of keep saying that and try to get a feel for it, And I always tell them to err on a fair catch as opposed to bringing it out if you're not sure.
I've seen Starzyk go in and field punts during practice, and joke. It seems like he's got a big personality, and I know that's something is that something you look for when recruiting kickers, maybe?
Well, I think what it does is it makes you feel like a kid's confident, And he's a guy that really gets along with our team and with our players, and he is he wants to snap, he wants to hold, he wants to kick. But he's just a good athlete. One day we had him catch some punts on a little drill. We're doing a half-line drill to kind of help out to give us a look. But I do like his personality, and he does remind me a lot of Cam.
I know you mentioned, I think Settles and Shanks today. Is there anyone else that's really sticking out to you as like a potential impact guy from that gunner position on the punt team?
Yeah, I tell you, Mega Blake, he's done a great job. Transferred in. I've been very pleased. When he got here, he came and saw me in my office. He said, "Coach, I want to be your gunner." And that's rare. I mean, sometimes like pulling teeth, trying to find that guy. He said, "I want to be your guy." But I really like what he's doing. A.J. Green's done a good job for us. Ishmael CC done a great job for us. Been real, we moved him there about a week ago. He's really picked on. I picked that up. And then over the end spot, we're using Bryce Stevens, Rodney Hill, Akari Johnson, Cam Shanks a little bit too.
You call it like up back or something on punt, the two guys that are back. How do you decide on those guys?
You talking about on punt return?
Yeah, on punt team, the two guys that are like in front
Shield guys, we call them Shield. And really, if I go way back when I was at Georgia, Auburn and Georgia, I always used big guys. So I don't know if y'all even remember these names, but when I was at Georgia, we had I'm trying to remember their names, so I move on from that. But we had 2 first-rounders that were old linemen, and then we had another guy that just knew the system. He made all the calls for us. So here, what I did last year, after some study with a coach, I said, I'm going to go with a big Shield. That's the guy that makes all the calls, and I'm going to get an athletic guy to play what we call the mover spot. So it gets another athlete on the field. So our whole goal last year, let's get a better second Shield, which is a mover. Let's get a better athlete at long snapper. And that's really upgraded our coverage a lot. And, of course, you got Devin Bell back there punting, who's obviously a great cover guy. But as of old, we would always look for two old linemen or 2 D linemen that really just like that role. They got to come in and meet with you a lot because you got to make sure you understand all the checks and stuff that come up. But, Street and Brooks, I'm trying to remember, Brooks both was here last year. They did that. Right now it's Lassiter, and we're using a tight end, Jaden Platt right now, who I really like. He's done a great job with his calls. He played a little bit of that at A&M.
You think Ashton knows a good athlete?
Great athlete. Yeah. he's as good as I've ever coached in coverage.
Yeah.
He's just so fast.
Coach Petrino was in here on Tuesday talking about, obviously the roster turnover now is just something that he's never seen before. What have you learned over the past couple of years as this has become a little bit more the norm about gelling guys, building team chemistry, and building the culture of that?
I've been in a good way with special teams. I've enjoyed the portal because you're getting different guys in. It's amazing. You'll get one guy in like Caleb Wooden. He loves special teams, and Larry Worth loves special teams. Those guys just want to play on teams, and obviously they want to play on defense. But Larry last year was a 4-team unit guy. Then he starts from the Tennessee game on, and he still started on 3 special teams. But that's Larry. Larry doesn't get tired. Not everybody can do that. So I like it because it gives me a chance to fix some pieces, But I also think that, when when you get guys here, you just got to find that right spot. And the good and bad of it is this: you can go back and watch their team, transfer. You can go back and watch where they played at last year, what positions they played. The bad of it is you have a guy that goes to another school you're playing. Now he's sitting in there. That special teams guy's got him in there. Okay, what do you do here on punt? What when they check it to this? What does that mean? So you really got to do a personnel check of who's on your team is playing there now. How it could hurt you.
Specific examples of that where there's been a guy that maybe has been in your system that knows, and you say you got to adjust, going into a specific
Yeah, I mean,
game?
last year I felt like we had a kid on our team that went to another SEC school. I won't call him out, but I knew when we got in the game, I knew our scheme inside and out. Just was a fact. But that's my job to try to go into that game and change things up best I can to give them something where the cues aren't the same as when they played here.
You talked about just who's going to be kicking off between Devin Bale and Blake Ford, but Ford had 46 touchbacks last year. Do you think that could be something that gives him the edge over this battle?
You talking about Blake had
Blake and Devin on the kickoffs.
Who had the 46%? Blake.
Blake.
Yeah. So Blake, when you look at Blake, he's 46%, but they at North Texas last year they did a lot of trick kicks, like they skied over here and skied over there. So when we went down, and we went through and looked at film and threw out the trick kicks. His average went up to right about 79%, but you got to throw all that out and look at it. But I do think Blake's very capable. Blake was here before. I think he's very, very capable, and Devin's very capable. They both are. But I think Devin, if he could, he'd prefer just to punt. But he certainly doesn't mind helping our team, So that's just going to be a battle. We'll see how it plays out.
And then you talked about the punt block unit. Shamar Easter had one over today.
He did. He did a good job.
Can you just emphasize that? And have you seen any other guys who could make those type of plays?
I tell you, another guy stood out, and I was really, really excited for Shamar to make that play. But also Donovan Whitten, who's from down Arkadelphia, Arkansas. He's been I think he'll have opportunity to play some teams for us this year, and that's one of his strengths. He's pretty good in practice at blocking kicks.